A police officer was carrying out a car theft investigation. Then the officer started blasting the soundtrack of the movie Encanto. A Santa Ana city councilman eventually showed up to get the music turned down. Apparently, the officer did this to prevent the video from landing on YouTube. Reason being, YouTube screens out clips that have copyrighted music. And no one guards their copyrights quite like Disney. This is not the first time a police officer has used this tactic either. Other departments across the country have been caught playing music when they know that the public is recording them. NBC's Steve Patterson joins us now from Los Angeles with more in what I think is our first conversation since the Olympics. Good to see you back stateside, and I'm fascinated to know more about what happened here. What more do we know about what went on in Santa Ana?
So just to go back to the initial police interaction, police responding at about 11 o'clock to a call of a stolen car. They arrive on scene and they see a guy that they're very familiar with, a YouTuber in the community that runs a page that's called Santa Ana Audits, and they're kind of like a Robin Hood-like organization or agency, or just really a person that records interactions with police and posts them on to YouTube. The officer sees this guy, he thinks, I'm going to use the strategy that you were just talking about, Joshua, which is to play copyrighted music. In this case, as you mentioned, nobody protects their IP like Disney, so they play Disney music with the hope that it'll get taken down if it's posted. The council member comes out, they have the confrontation, the officer turns down the music after going through Encanto and Mulan and Coco and all these other Disney songs. And eventually he apologizes and the situation is over. However, it is the back end that people are worried about, this gray area where when you post these things, as you mentioned, they're liable to get copyright strike. And it's not happening as if somebody is manually sorting through these videos, looking through the copyrighted music. These are probably what you would call less sophisticated algorithms, bots that automatically take down these videos. The police, again, hoping that none of their interactions, as long as they're posted with this music, will end up staying online. Whether or not that tactic works, has been a back and forth, and we've seen, as you mentioned, other interactions throughout the country. But what is so troubling is that we don't simply know how many times this has happened, and it's raising to the level of agencies like the ACLU that is very worried about the First Amendment right to document police that has led, as you know, to numerous reforms over the past few years, Josh.
So you have this officer from Santa Ana blasting, I believe that was Reflection from Mulan, but blasting a variety of Disney songs to try to prevent scrutiny. Have the city or the police department responded to all this?
They issued a statement, I believe we can throw it up on screen there, basically just saying that they take these interactions seriously, that they mean no disrespect to the public, and that there is an administrative investigation into the officer's conduct. Now, again, we're still in this kind of gray area, this brave new world that we live in. There's not really anything in the police charter that says that this is a wrong move. It's certainly not illegal, and it's certainly not copyright infringement on the officer's end. So again, that leads to a lot of people concerned about using this tactic, or this tactic continuing to be allowed to be used by the police. And, it's led to the idea that how many of these videos have actually been taken down in the wake of something like George Floyd, which led to so many other changes within departments across the country, Josh?
I was just going to ask about that. Also from the statement, I should just note, the Chief of Police, David Valentine, wrote, quote, "My expectation is that all police department employees perform their duties with dignity and respect in the community we are hired to serve," unquote. That's from that official statement from Santa Ana. Steve, we should also be clear. People do have certain rights to document what the police do. You do not have the right to interfere with law enforcement officers as they're doing their job. I think that's what made the George Floyd video so powerful, is that people were bystanders. No one intervened in what was happening, as painful as it was, but because they didn't intervene, that allowed the police department to view what happened solely based on the officer's actions. I wonder what our sense is of how this fits into all of this, especially because there's so much more scrutiny on the police.
Well, and I think obviously there is, you could say, more of a nuisance when it comes to police handling cases where they're just simply trying to do their job, and now you have a guy sticking a camera phone in your face and you're worried about the conduct that you're doing. But I think a nuisance is almost virtually within an officer's job description, and they should be trained how to handle those nuisances, if you want to call them that, without creating a nuisance of their own. And that's what we saw in this case. But more generally, and I think more broadly and more speaking to this case and the worries and fears that come from this, is that if you're going to start striking and taking down these videos that are posted online solely for that function, with most people knowing what their rights are, what they can and can't do when it comes to an active scene, I think a lot of people are worried about what we're missing, what is getting taken down automatically without the general public knowing, Joshua.
All right, thank you, Steve. Much appreciated. That's NBC Steve Patterson with the story tonight from Los Angeles. Eggs are